Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of the People's Platform, where we discuss, of course, issues that impact the lives of general people or the general public here in Sri Lanka. The topic today that we've selected is road safety. The impact that road accidents have on Sri Lanka's economy, on us as a society as whole, and in this particular instance, a society that's living in a bankrupt nation. And to discuss these matters, we've got two members of an expert committee of the Sri Lanka Medical Association, also known as the SLMA. First, we've got Professor Dharmaratna. He is the chairman of this expert committee at the SLMA. A very good evening, Professor, and welcome to the show. Also, we've got Kimali Fernando, who usually appears on our shows for matters concerning the tourism sector here in Sri Lanka. But very interesting to have you also here, Kimali, and this time not as an expert in the tourism industry, but as a member of the SLMA expert panel to ensure road safety. Before we get into it, Kimali, just for any members of the audience who are wondering, how did you seek your membership on the SLMA committee on road safety? You're known as a tourism person.
Exactly, good question. I didn't seek it, that they requested me to join, but reality is that during tourism days, 2.5 years, I was focused on the tourists who are having accidents, deaths, and so on. Some their fault, some others our citizens' fault. And that was an area that I was looking at. There were several problems with that. One is that compensation, for example, the law. Because they drive, they are injured. Who's going to pay? Because the police will look at it from a road traffic accident, but who pays for their hospitals? And these are issues that came about. And that made me focus on road traffic accidents. And thereafter, for some reason, the SLMA requested that I join from the private sector to support, to bring few things, to bring awareness, to make the policy changes, to agitate to make the policy changes that is necessary, and to try to get government and all of government approach, because actually every 25 seconds in the world one person dies on the road. Every 25 seconds somebody in the world, somebody in the world dies. And Sri Lanka spends about 1.5% of our GDP on healthcare, right? But the cost of road accidents to Sri Lankan economy is 3 to 5%. This is by the World Bank, calculated it for the 2020 figures. So it's a huge impact. And I think that the doctors have an amazing perspective, and I always compliment them, because they have been doing this for like trying to bring awareness for the longest time. And not only me, there are 2 other private sector members as well who are involved. We are volunteers and for this cause.
Okay, thank you very much, Kimali. Professor, getting into this expert committee and the issues that you've really identified in ensuring road safety here in Sri Lanka, before we find a solution to any problem, we need to first understand the issues. Now, I think the general public of Sri Lanka will have a good understanding of the issues surrounding road safety here in Sri Lanka, because they are the people who are on the road. Either you're driving your private vehicle or you're in public transport. Either way, most of the time, people in Sri Lanka fear for their lives, especially when they're on the road, despite them being in public transport or in their private vehicles. As the SLMA expert committee, what are the main issues that you've really identified? We'll discuss that in general, and then we'll delve deep into what exactly you've identified. What are the main issues that just really caught your attention?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, People's Platform, for inviting SLMA expert committee, and thank you, Kimali, for arranging this. So first, let me tell you the problem, which I thought people know, but every day I get a little bit surprised when I suddenly realize that everyone doesn't know. So every day about 8 to 9 people die on our roads, and basically that is more than 3,000 people each year. So from 2009 to till about 19, after the war was over, another 30,000 died. Even during COVID, this came a little bit low because people didn't come out that much. But still people die. So I usually try to tell is whether even if it rains or no mosquitoes or have mosquitoes or whatever it is, this continues. And this is one of the biggest man-made epidemics in this country as well as in this century. And the thing is, there are countries which have reduced this in the world. Even now Sweden is going for zero mortality or zero accidents, right? So Sri Lanka also, I think, have to do something. And then the bigger problem, in addition to what Kimali said, is there is a huge burden or problem or pressure on our younger generation, mainly males. We are still a developing country, and we need these young males, females also we need, but for our development programs of the country, so if they get killed or injured, because this is only the number that dies, but there's a large number gets injured, some permanently disabled for life. Then the problem is then the someone has to look after them. So usually that also costs money. So these are basically the burden or the problem we are having in the country at the moment. Then this is not what you asked me actually. What are the reasons? I think reasons is mainly we can say that there are rules, but adherence to rules and implementation of the rules are a little bit not very good. So compared to now other countries, again I think Kimali also mentioned, now say other countries have a demerit point system where your license get either suspended or cancelled if you lose some amount of points. I think Sri Lanka also trying to introduce this. So which will make people, now other countries also, people are people, but they drive a little less dangerously, mainly because these rules work. And the other thing is again is digitalization, because now when a policeman has to write a charge, then a lot of other pressures come on him to not to do it. But if the charge comes home through email or through the postman, which happens in other countries, because there you have a picture is taken and you are sent basically the fine you have to pay. So this I think somehow or other, if we can implement the rules, we don't need new rules, because there are enough rules in the country. Implement the rules, not blaming anyone individual or personally, and then we as road users, you, I, Kimali, everyone, we also drive, we also go on the road, we also have a responsibility to maintain or adhere to rules. The issue is, for some reason this does not work, and this causes a lot of issues. And as you basically tell, the road insecurity or road non-safe issues, we don't have to talk, because you go on the road, you see it.
Professor, now specifically, I was expecting a few bigger points, but let's focus on this, being responsible and implementing the rules, right? So generally the government or law enforcement are supposed to implement the rules. Now, when you say implementing the rules to affect the general public or everyone, even private citizens, how can that really work when the government or the public sector can't even enforce the rules on agencies that they have exclusive control over? I'm not speaking of private citizens, but let's take the CTB for an example, buses. Not only the CTB, but the CTB and the public transport sector entirely, even private buses. Now, we see how these private buses drive on the road day in and day out. It's extremely dangerous. It is extremely dangerous. I think extremely dangerous is an understatement, right? You know it, Professor Kimali, you know it. Everybody watching here knows it. Even if you are a person who uses public transport or just a person who uses your private vehicles, you know that buses in Sri Lanka, there's a high probability that you don't play around with them, because you know that they don't care. They know that people are scared of the way they drive, and that's how it works. So my question to you, Professor, is how do you expect a country to enforce these laws against the general population when, or you go on a take a step towards that, when you can't even enforce it on people that you have a little bit more exclusive control over, like the CTB and private buses? You have permits for them. How can you control the entire population if you can't even control that small segment?
So the thing is, everyone knows if you do something wrong or break a law, then you have to be punished. The issue is punishing part doesn't happen, right? And most probably that is mainly because people see it, but no one takes action against them. So because you can't go and stop a bus going fast, but if you can do something to the driver who is driving, who did something wrong, then most probably he might not do it again. So again, as a committee, Kimali knows, we have been trying is, now the traffic police also, there is a huge problem of personnel. So they are limited in numbers, right? And you know, in the morning when everyone is going to work, if suddenly the traffic police officer has to go and write a charge, then the whole thing get blocked. So in the morning, no traffic police officer will try to find you. But if there is a digitalization, now CCTV cameras everywhere we have. But if we can make it kind of legal where a picture can be charged or used in the courts to charge someone, which happens in other countries, because no country the police person goes and write a charge, right? They take a picture and it is basically fine is sent to your home. And if this starts to work, you won't want to pay money to someone regularly. So so as a committee we think this will have some effect on this breaking of road rules. Right?
And I think the data also, if you bring data into perspective, if you start with some data, like so 8 to 9 or 10 people die a day, but majority of the people who have fatality are people on motorbikes. That is often the youth, actually. Then on three-wheelers, then lorries and so on. So you need to focus on that. And all the countries like Australia, Sweden, Norway, all these countries who have successfully implemented this, they've had an all-of-government approach. So they've had like the government and health, transport, education and whatever. Since everyone's so occupied with whatever they're doing, what we are doing as a expert, this thing is we are working closely with the police. They've been really, really helpful. They have a resource problem. Okay, we have to accept that. So as Professor correctly said, we need to put technology in. We need to look at the data themselves. Actually, the data itself is not accurate, I believe. You know that, right? If you look at the tally, the insurance companies, what they pay, and the accidents that's reported, it doesn't tally. So you need to have provinces, the municipal councils being responsible for their district, and out of the 25 districts, say, who is the best place what is the safest road to have? You need to create some kind of competition. You need public representatives, the 225, to be held accountable also at some point, right? To say that you've come from your people. What are you going to do at pedestrian crossings? Are you going to put a CCTV camera to make sure that people stop at a pedestrian crossing, right? The research has shown that why do you have accidents? Most of the time, it's because overtaking, number one. Speeding, diversions. Then only comes alcohol, that whole thing, and then level crossings and tiredness and mechanical failure, etc. So there's a whole list of things. We've all violated traffic laws, let's be honest. You and I both have. But I think that the understanding that there's a role for government to play, there's a role for various like ministries, whatever, all that to play. But there's a role for the health sector who's facing the crisis to play. And there's really a role for citizens to demand some action from their representative also, right? Why are you not putting CCTV cameras? Why are you not asking people to wear the helmets? I mean, you see parents, in fact, even putting their children on a motorbike with 2-3 kids on, which is so sorry because they probably can't afford the helmet. Do we get old helmets which are discarded from other countries at least as a substitute? Do we have a system where we can trade old helmets, talking to Japan or other countries? These are things that we have to do, so because we just can't say, yes, we all know there's a problem, there's nothing that nobody is doing. And as Professor correctly said, technology is an amazing enabler. And I think in all sectors, we haven't, I think, sort of used it well enough. And another area is the driving test itself, right? What is the quality of our driving test? You know that it's not very good, right? Why is it that we don't get Australia or New Zealand or UK or whatever driving test format, exact format, and get those very companies to do it? Get all of us to do it again. Maybe we'll all fail, actually. We might all fail, actually, right? So things like that, we need to continuously, it's like, there are so many things that have to happen. Like Professor has arranged like the education ministry. They work with education ministry, went to the schools. That's what other countries do. They go to schools because the children will tell their father or mother, no, I can't go without helmet. They're a voice, the children. So we've already gone to the schools and given some, awareness. So it's like several areas you need to attack this.
Right. So, Professor, we spoke a lot about what the people can really do, obey road rules, awareness programs, and all of that. But then when you come to the infrastructure that's available in Sri Lanka, I know we boast about having so many highways and highways in construction, but the fact of the matter is that many of the roads in Sri Lanka, once they are built, the maintenance is really, really bad. And because the maintenance is bad, the roads are extremely dilapidated. Even sometimes very, very, important roads, A9 roads even. For example, the road leading from Kalutara to Ratnapura. I took it recently, and it was just so bad. It was so bad. It was so bad to a point where you can't really keep to your lane when you're climbing up the hill towards Ratnapura because there are so many potholes. So you need to veer off into the other lane, and the roads are circular. So because of that, you probably wouldn't see another vehicle coming from the other side. Then again, you get the issue of these buses coming, and then they don't really care when they take the turn. And accidents again. So on the part of the government in maintaining these roads, has your committee, addressed this issue, seen this issue, spoken about it?
Yes. Again, let me kind of evade your question immediately and tell a little bit differently now. Now this we also call it a disease. So this is caused by there is a vehicle, then there is the roads, and then there is basically the environment and the person who drives it. Right. So these are the reasons. So if you want to prevent it, you have to address each and everything. So roads is one of the most important things because you need lighting in the evening, and then if it is rains, you should have some way to stop people driving fast. Then there shouldn't be, as you said, very bad road surface, which will again give rise to crashes. And then also there has to be pavements kind of things where the pedestrians are basically prevented from getting hit by vehicles, and then barriers or something where pedestrians can't come to the road, right? And then near the schools actually, there has to be a really good way to prevent children get injured near the schools, right? So these are the usual thing, and then I totally agree with you. The roads have to be very good. So that is one area we have people from Road Development Authority as well as the Highways Ministry in our committee. And then the next one is transport. The problem is now, sorry, you and I come to work in a vehicle, and then most probably the vehicle is on the garage or someplace till you go home. But say three-wheelers, public transport vehicles, those are the people who are on the roads majority of the time. So if they do something wrong, I think the problem on the road safety will be bigger than you or I coming to work and going back. So this is why actually we thought we'll address them also. So one is roads, and the second thing is again comes to the public transport vehicles. Another important thing is our school vans, which we have been again talking about, very unsafe kind of vehicle where our children are transported. So these has to be again looked into, and then Kimali also addressed some things, the drivers. So how the license is given, whether they are really trained, and then now again when you go to countries like Australia, there is this graduating license system. So if you are a new driver, it's not your age, but when you got the license, if you are a new driver, then your license plate is a different color, where you can't take any passengers. Then after some time, your license is changed, then you are allowed to take passengers, but not on the front seat. Because you look at them and start speaking, and then only, so you are slowly graduated to a driver. But Sri Lanka, you get the license to it and you can take anyone. So this is actually why I have been trying to kind of evading your questions is it's very difficult to talk about one area and look at this, and that is why our committee, although it is in the Sri Lanka Medical Association, it has more non-doctors than doctors, because SLMA, everyone knows it's our medical doctors association. It's mainly because we as a committee, I as an individual and we as an organization have realized that this is multi-sectoral. Causation is multi-sectoral, then one group, health or transport or law enforcement, one group can't prevent this. Everyone has come to the same platform, talk to each other and bring out solutions to address this problem. So this is one thing. The only issue is, you know, I know, everyone knows, building road is the most kind of the expensive thing in all this prevention strategy. So although we
No, Professor, I'm not speaking about building roads.
no, I mean
maintaining roads.
Same thing now. Now what we have seen.
But again, Professor, something that I at least noticed, we'll just speak about this point and then cross over to a commercial break. What I've noticed is that, say for example, the roads in the area where I live, one day the RDA comes, they carpet the entire road, it's brilliant, it's smooth, it's great, life is good. 2 weeks later, the water board comes, starts breaking that newly made road, lays some pipes underneath, throws in some cement, and they walk away. Maybe 3-4 years after that, the RDA comes again. The road is extremely gone because once you start chipping from here and there, the potholes just get bigger, and they lay these things again. And then you get the electricity board coming in and doing God knows what repairs that they are doing while breaking the road. So coordination between these ministries, that also has been looked into, Professor?
Yes, actually now, very interesting now. There are some things I can't tell.
Because it's still in the...
No, I'll tell you during the
break. Okay, okay, Professor.
Because the issue is, now again, this everything, you can always talk about, there is some other hidden agenda also for doing this. But this happens, and if you go to any road safety committee, they come and fight each other.
You mean the different ministries,
groups,
different
all
sectors?
People are there. So one said we can't go and put the speed limit notice because the road development authority doesn't allow us to break the road. Then they say, no, I didn't tell that. And they say, so this is kind of an example, but it's very interesting. And a lot of committees I actually stopped going to because it just becomes a waste of time where people fight. So I totally agree. Now again, Kimali knows, I know, our committee knows. So this is why we are kind of trying to talk to. That's why one reason we came today also, to tell people that everyone should work together, and there should be a platform, a group, a committee, or whatever it is you can call it, where all can come and talk to each other and work. The issue is everyone does something. It's not that no group, no ministry, no government agencies doesn't do anything. They don't come together. So some things are duplicated. Now, for an example, everyone goes to schools and talk. Police goes, we go, everyone go, right? But no one coordinates. So one day you might go, next day I might go and talk the same thing. So the issue is no one basically come and talk to each other because we work in compartments, alone kind of, without collaborations, without links. And so maybe that prevents this really being effective in road safety and preventing deaths.
Right, thank you very much, Professor. We'll cross over to a short commercial break and continue this very interesting discussion on the other side. Stay tuned, you're watching The People's Platform.
එළඹෙන ඕනෑම මොහොතක් අලුත් දෙයක් කරන්න සුදුසුයි කියලා හිතන එක තමයි වඩාත්ම ධනාත්මක.
දැන් මූල්‍ය අරමුදලේ ගැන අපි සාකච්ඡා කරලා තියෙනවා ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑම් එක ගැන, ඉසරස්ම ගැන. ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන්නේ මේකත් අවස්ථාවක්. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට අලුත් ආරම්භයක් කරන්න.
අපි පසුගාමීව හිතන හැම මොහොතකම අපිට ඊළඟ අඩිය තියා ගැනීම ගැන ප්‍රශ්නයක් එනවා තමයි.
අර පරණ දේවල් පැත්තකට තියලා මේ පරණ ආකල්ප පැත්තකට තියලා අපිට වුණ වැරදි වලින් අපි ඉගෙන ගන්නත් ඕන. හැම එකමත් හදා බල ඉන්න බෑ. රටක් හැටියට හිතන්න ඕන. ඒතර අපිට එතනින් පටන් ගන්න අවස්ථාවක් තියෙනවා.
මිලින්ද සමග නියමාර්ථය ඉරිදා රාත්‍රී 10:30ට. නැගිටිමු ශ්‍රී ලංකා සතියේ දිනවල උදෑසන 7ට.
ඇයි අපිට 17 වෙනි වතාවට IMF එක දිහා බලන් ඉන්න සිද්ධ වුනේ?
ඔක්කොම කොන්දේසි යට ගහලා හංගලා කොටසක්
ගත්තට පස්සේ තමයි කොන්දේසි ටික එළියට දැම්මේ.
ඔබතුමියලා තෝරගෙන නැද්ද මෙන්න මේ වැනි ආකෘතියක් තමයි මේ රට ඉස්සරහට යන්න තියෙන්නේ කියලා?
මම දකින්නේ ලොකු වරදක් තමයි රටගොඩ නැංවීම කියන කාරණාවේදී ලංකාවට ජාතික ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් නොමැති.
අතන දැන් ඒ ජේවිප් එකට තිබ්බයි කිව්වේ රැල්ල නැති වෙලාද?
දැන් අපිට කරන්න වෙන්නේ මැතිවරණයක් දෙන්නේ නැත්නම් මැතිවරණයක් අපිට ගන්න වෙනවා.
ඡන්දෙට ගියාට පස්සේ වැඩිපුරම ඡන්දේ දාන්න යන්නේ මේ අපේ කාන්තා ඡන්දදායිකාවෝ.
සටන සඳුදා රාත්‍රී 9:30ට.
Welcome back. You're watching the People's Platform. We're in discussion on a very serious topic, road safety, that according to Kimali costs Sri Lanka about 4 to 5% of our GDP every year. Kimali, we were discussing about the policy steps that the SLMA expert committee has taken. You've done quite a lot of work, quite a lot of assessing, quite a lot of awareness. But Kimali, I'm going to ask you a question that would be a question that would have usually been asked on a program like Face the Nation, more political in nature. But we're speaking about hundreds of hours of experts such as yourself, such as Professor, being put in to draft these policy frameworks and steps, programs that we can implement to better the lives of all Sri Lankans, to save lives of all Sri Lankans, to save money for the country and overall help Sri Lanka progress to become a better nation. But when it comes to the implementation of these policies, I don't think the English language really has a word that I can use to describe the appalling nature of the level of implementation of these policies. So now I know that the expert committee is focused on drafting these policy, because that's a huge issue in itself to have these discussions and try to figure out how do we do things. But has the committee focused on maybe what can we do to ensure that these policy recommendations, this book with hundreds of pages that we're creating, is not going to be collecting dust in the archives?
Absolutely good question. The World Bank is the one who did the report, detailed report, going to 100 pages or so, about, with all the data, and they arrived at this figure of 3% to 5%. So there is a problem. We have to accept. So there are, if you are in government, you would do something. We are not in government. So what we do is that we try to make the changes the way we could. Right? From my personal view, and this is not SLMA view, this is my personal view, is that each district, the representatives of the country who's in parliament, their district should be ranked. Their district should be ranked to say these are the hotspots for accidents.
Right.
For example, now 2 engineers got together and they've done the study and they've confirmed that the most amount of accidents are in the Colombo, Paliagoda, Putlam road. Now they have said that with data, and they can even predict now the accidents.
Right.
That's not going to happen. Then who is representing in that area? What is the target for them personally to reduce it? I think the people should demand that. This is my personal view, nothing to do with SLMA. Right? That is my personal view. But with regards to us personally, what I'm doing is talking to people and trying to convince certain decision makers to use technology, because that's the easy fix, because you have 8,000 police. There's no way that you can handle or monitor every single car that comes and writes a ticket, and it's practically not possible. So you have to use technology. Then the question is, whom are you going to ask them to do it? So I myself have spoken to some mayors and trying to convince them to do it. But now the Colombo Municipal Council, I think, has been dissolved. So I'm
what do you do?
With that. I'm stuck with that. But what I'm trying to say is, but it's not something we can give up, because it's a plague that has affected us, and I don't think you can say, oh, this is just so difficult, let's not do anything about it and let's proceed. I think there are things we individually can do, personally we can do, as SLMA we can do, working with other people we can do. I mean, talking to World Bank and various other people, I mean, they have done a lot. World Bank has done a lot globally on this thing, and they are looking for government leadership for this. Really,
They're not getting too much of it
but,
here in Sri
but
Lanka.
there's so much. But I think the police are helping, the transport ministry people are helping, education ministry people are helping. There are people who do help us. I have to be honest. I mean, the police very receptive, I have to say. So now, for example, the school buses, there was a whole program the last 1 week. The police together with SLMA went and checked school vans
The
near
suitability.
schools, and so many failed. And they were given time, fix it. If not, you can't
When you
ride.
say fail, Kimali, what do you mean?
There
fail?
are basic requirements they have to have to go in a school to take children. I mean, there was someone who was 75 or 80 years old driving a school van. Right? There were things like so many things obstructing there. This thing. They had covered it in dark colors. These are all illegal. So the police were really helpful. They physically went with SLMA team and checked. So you don't see it, but it's happening. And now they're checking the urine and whatever for this. So they are doing their best, but you can't expect them to. And therefore, I really think that technology is the way forward. If I had to say, like, okay, do few things. If you want me to say, driving license scheme, how you give it has to be changed. Even simulation.
So are you saying you need to make it harder for people to get license, because it's quite hard to get a license in Sri Lanka? I mean, I'm not speaking about the test phase, but I'm speaking about just the cumbersome nature of having to go up and down, having your examinations cancelled, and so on and so forth.
But that's true, but the quality matters, no? The quality matters, because I know people who have passed the driving test in Sri Lanka and failed in the UK, for example. Many times failed, right? So I think that the standard should be international standard driving test. I mean, there's theory test, there's practical test. We can use technology and use simulation, maybe make it fun, where people have to go through that and they have to pass that first before they do this.
Do the real thing.
Yeah, there's so much. You can do videos, you can show people. And Sirasa should take leadership. I really think that Sirasa should take leadership in addressing this. You guys do such a lot of good work. This is something that you could be proud of, and maybe every news item you can have 2 seconds talking about it. And maybe you can have the simulation. Maybe you guys can get involved in some things. Really, all the media, I think, should get involved in this, because it's a pandemic. We are doing our best, and we will not give up to do it, and we are making change, right? So we're going to continue to do that.
Well, no doubt, Kimali, the work that is done by the expert committee is instilling change in Sri Lanka. But to instill, change across the board, significant change, if you will, which is what Sri Lanka needs right now, judging by the position that we're in. We need government leadership. We need state support to do this, because the apparatus is there, the money is there, the capability, the reliance for a certain degree, the power is there. So, Professor, I'm going to direct that same question to you, and you as the chairman of this expert committee. Has this subject of implementation of your policies that you formulate here in this committee being discussed? What's your opinion on that?
Right. So, basically, we have talked to policymakers, starting with HE, and then we have met some people, then we have continuously been talking to health ministers, and then even now the transport minister and the state minister for transport, and there is the National Council for Road Safety, which is kind of the main body for road safety in the country. So we have been discussing.
Is that a multi-party body? Does it have multi-sectoral participation? Yes. Okay.
Right. So we are working with them. Actually, they invited us to come and work with. So as Kimali very correctly said, we are not policymakers. We can come and talk, suggest, and sometimes even guide or support, but we can't change policy. So that we have continuously been doing, and then what we have seen is success has not been that great.
In implementation?
Or when we try to do it, I mean, people are very nice. They give us meetings, we go and talk to them, and then everyone forgets everything, then we do the same thing. So somehow or other, I am sad, I think our committee is sad, we have been not able to make the policymakers realize how big a problem this is. I mean, even the don't get angry with me, but even the media, if you take, talk about things that might not be, that big. Now, for an example, now there is a dengue thing going. This is not a comparison between dengue and road traffic or anything, but actually dengue kills about 300 people each year. Right, and it also doesn't happen every day. It comes when the rains comes, but this is a continuous thing which kills about 3,000 people each year. So the interest that generated by road, maybe because it happens every day, no one is really bothered.
It's normalized.
Normalized.
It's normalized.
Yes, maybe.
Well, Professor, you don't need to feel bad about not being able to convince policymakers here in Sri Lanka. I mean, the people couldn't convince the policymakers that a debt default is imminent 2 years ago. So I don't think you need to feel that bad. But judging by the number of committees that have, really delved deep into issues that Sri Lanka is facing and come up with really good plans, but is collecting dust. Personally for me, I don't want to see this report going through the same fate. And that's the reason for the question. So implementation, when does it really start? When is the committee due to present their report or to present their findings, to present the path forward, the plan for implementation?
So now, there is a parliamentary select committee also for road safety.
Okay.
Right. They also, I think, produce, if I am not very wrong, 2 reports. Right, which is also getting dusted somewhere.
Okay.
Right, and these were because I was also part in both discussions. They were really good reports, and a lot of things that we are saying, the committee is in that report. Right, and then they also said that there need to be within inverted commas even presidential task force or committee for road safety. So now what we are trying to do is we are continuing to talk to stakeholders, continue to do them, sensitize them, and then slowly trying to change them to come and work together, not with the SLMA but with themselves, each of them. Yeah. And we believe, we hope, and we expect that this will cause them to come and work together and slowly bring what they are doing to the same table. And you can call it a committee or table or whatever it is, that is not our issue. So that is actually what we want to do now. Now you can ask what can you do or that kind of things. The issue is everyone is doing something. So we are not really asking a lot of different things or expensive things or some things to happen new, but to continue what they are doing, but together in a collaboration. And as very correctly Kumari said, we are always there to support. We are all doing voluntary.
And also key stakeholder which was not addressed is the insurance companies. And we met some of them because for them the claim happens. So it's not in their interest for you to have an accident.
Right.
Okay. So I think that insurance companies, motor car people may like because they buy the spare parts or whatever. But insurance companies, we have spoken to some who are kind of keen to assist. So there again, what we are pitching for and using this forum really, to be honest, to convince people in government as well, support us to put cameras, support us to have the data, the correct data, allow us to rank districts and predict hotspots. Right? And because I think insurance companies will be amazing partner to do that.
Because it will be good for them as well.
Absolutely good for them. And they really know the data. And also you need to change some law because when you're injured, who's going to pay for you? Who pays for you? I faced that with tourists, to be honest. That's what happened originally. But I was thinking, who pays?
Because you need to, I believe you need to file a separate civil suit, pursue that claim, and that's going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Yeah. And the police role is different, right? They will say this happened and this damage happened. Whatever. They are not going to help you with your claim in hospital, in a private hospital or government hospital. So these are things that legally have to, but it's such a huge problem that I don't think we can, if there's no will, it won't get solved, but we can make impact if you take a particular road and you fix it. And if you put a traffic light in some place. And I think the police working with us closely, I'm happy and grateful for that, At least that's a start.
Right.
Adding a little bit, actually now we have about 3,000 deaths per year. So if we can reduce it by 10%, we stop 300 people dying.
and the economic impact and the image of the country. Sri Lanka is known as a country that is not safe on the roads. Everyone says, oh my God, that's nation branding. This is really disastrous to have this. And that's the reason that you have to have more trains, not less trains and going on strike, but more trains, more disability access for trains, more places for people who are pensioners and people who are older. Maybe even if you have to have a carriage for women only if there are issues of abuse or whatever. If you have more trains, less people will get. So it's a multi-pronged approach.
Thank you very much, Kimali. Thank you very much, Professor Dharmaratne, for discussing on this very, very broad topic. I don't think the time really on the show was enough. But like you quite correctly said, Kimali and Professor Dharmaratne, people in this country seem to have normalized this this occurrence. Accidents are usual. You know, it's only if one of your loved ones die that you feel the sadness, the pain, and maybe that would motivate you to do something for it. But then, you know, it's too little, too late. I was really surprised with the statistic on the number of dengue deaths each year and the number of accident deaths, and how staggering the real difference is, and how also staggering the difference is in the attention that we pay to these two, which are both public health issues. So thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much, Kimali, for explaining these to the general public. Hopefully our viewers got a good idea about the situation right here in Sri Lanka and what we as a society need to do. Of course, much of the responsibility, the power and the will or the supposed will lies with legislators, with people in power. But there will come a day when you will get an opportunity to elect these people, and hopefully you elect people with the will to address this public health issue, which is road accidents, and promote road safety here in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. God bless.